around 15,000 people, so big, maybe not too big if we think of a big company, a big multinational company, but still a substantial number of people. Between Washington, D.C., where we have the main office, and a strong presence, as we say, in the field, in the different countries where we work and operate. So for me as a recruiter, today is going to be about recruitment-related messages. This is something to be kept into consideration. This is a place that will ask or will offer the opportunity to work in different locations, so being flexible, mobile, relocate, but also people that can work from Washington, where today we still have more than 50% of the workforce from Washington, working for one country, working for more countries, some people even working for more regions, so traveling and relocating are things that we need to keep into consideration for a career, long or short, at the bank. Nationalities, I was at the booth already and I got questions from some of you about the nationalities. It's an opportunity to say something about diversity. We, like, hopefully, everybody else, we value diversity in different aspects, including nationalities. For example, from the recruitment standpoint, we have an institutional target about gender. So definitely the bank is targeting gender parity, gender balance, not in the organization at large, but each level, each grade, we need to reach by 2020, or hopefully even earlier, gender balance. Again, top level, mid-career, junior, entry level. This is very important. This has an impact on the way we recruit. Nationalities, where we try to diversify nationalities, we don't have a quota system. Even here, if you go with some other organization, they will tell you that maybe when they advertise the Young Professional Program, they can target some nationalities every year because of their interest to diversify. We want to diversify the workforce, but we don't have this quota approach. We don't do that. We try to go for the best available talents. And then there's another aspect of diversity that we are monitoring now, that it's also education diversity. We know that if we want to achieve diversity of thinking, it's very important not only to attract people with different passports, but also coming from different backgrounds, from different schools, from different universities. That's also important to be considered. The World Bank is a group. Just to, again, to be sure, I will not go into details, but it's actually 5 different entities, 5 different institutions, 5 agencies. The one that we are more familiar, it's the first one, IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, that you might know because back in 1944, 1945, together with the International Monetary Fund, these 2 entities were created to help countries to reconstruct after the war. IBRD today is still there with the same acronym, but with a different role, focusing on middle-income countries. The bank divided work activities and lending regulations between low-income countries and middle-income countries. But both entities, they work with the government of the country that we try to help. So between the bank and the public sector, the countries, the official counterparts. Then in the early 60s, was pretty clear there was another player that was playing an important role, could have played an important role vis-à-vis development and developing countries, private sector. And the bank introduced and created IFC, International Finance Corporation, the private sector arm of the World Bank Group. Today, 30-35% of the workforce and the numbers that you see are with IFC. Today, the private sector is a key player. As a recruiter, this is important because what does it mean? That we need people, we need expertise, and people with an interest to work with the public sector and the private sector. Sometimes the diverse experience could also be very welcome. And also when we see our numbers, it's very clear that the majority of the people that we recruit today are coming from the private sector. Traditionally, this is a place where we hire from academia and public sector, and we are still hiring, attracting people from these environments, but more and more the private sector is playing a key role. Even on the public sector side, we hire more people from the private sector with private sector expertise. We hire from NGOs, civil society, from academia. So you might know already through your experience or perception that this is a quite competitive environment, and we will talk about that in a minute, but that's a good story. It means we can target the World Bank today, in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, coming from different places and different experience. We don't have to be on a narrow track to really be of interest for an international organization like the bank. We value diverse experience. We need people with different views and different perspectives, as far as they can do or can apply what they know, they studied or they're doing to development and developing countries. And I think that's maybe it's not well known sometimes. This is a sort of a political slide, very rapidly, to reinforce that the bank is owned by the member countries. The 189 member countries, a few less of the UN, but we're almost there, they own the organization. Some countries are what we call major shareholders, but nevertheless, the position, the view, the voting commitments of the 189 countries and their positions are represented through 25 directors that are at the board in Washington, D.C., so that's also maybe not unique, but quite special about the bank. The board of directors is actually full-time based in Washington, D.C., so they meet every single day, basically, to review, discuss, and approve projects and initiatives. The contribution, as you might know, of the donor countries, of the major shareholders, of the shareholders, alas, go into the low-income countries' initiatives and lending. So the next two slides are where we work and what we do. So maybe geographically and thematically, they are the most important ones, and this is where I want to share maybe the only message I have for you today as a recruiter with the World Bank. And it's something to do about being knowledgeable and being familiar about where we work and what we do. When I talk to people, rightly so, and ask, how do you express interest in something that you would like to do? How do you express interest in a target company, organization? People would always, rightly so, say, 95% of them, I apply. Expressing interest in two different ways. One, that it's basically to demonstrate and apply for a position, but also to make your interest and work visible in a different way. That's also important. It could be extremely useful to do so. I believe that I'm not saying that we want to avoid the competition, but it's very important if we have a specific interest that we try to make our interest visible in a different way. We can wait for the opportunity. We can wait for the opportunity to arise, but it's also important to understand that we are in a global environment where to make our interest visible in a different way could be extremely useful. And I think that's important. Why? So this will require, first of all, being knowledgeable, knowing what's going on. So if we have a target organization, we need to be familiar with the organization. We have to read, we have to research. Why? This has an impact also in the way we express our interest. So if we know the target, we go back on our CV, on our cover letter, on our story, we can make it more relevant. Today, when we receive an application, rightly so, 95%, they will use their cover letter, their CV, to tell their story. A lot of people would use the cover letter and say, I graduated, I'm doing this, I would like to do this, I. If we are knowledgeable, if we are familiar with the target, we can actually have a cover letter that would give us an opportunity to demonstrate our knowledge and familiarity. We can talk about the target. We can talk about their projects, their challenges. And then in that context, we can say something about our experience. Okay, so focus on the target, also on the message. Where we are more knowledgeable, definitely we are also more confident. We ask better questions. We probably answer better when we reach the interview stage. There's no doubt about that. So the confidence. But more importantly, so knowledge, confidence, but more importantly, visibility. Where we are part of the discussion, where we are seen as contributors, and we will talk about how to be more connected, more visible. We are there. And for example, at the World Bank, being there, being connected, being able to make our interests visible, not as candidate, but as professional, would also create opportunities. For example, at the World Bank, you might know we have not only jobs and programs, but we also have what we call consultancies. Short-term contracts, they can be for 30 days, 60 days, 150 days per year. And these are opportunities that very often are not advertised. I will not be able to tell you, go on the website and monitor these short-term contracts, because we don't have a policy requiring the unit to advertise a short-term contract. How do they fill these jobs? They fill these jobs through the people that are there. Not necessarily people they know, but people that have been able to make their interests and work visible and being part of the discussion. So that's important to mention. I strongly believe that this is something that we need to keep into consideration. We can wait, but we can also more realistically being proactive. And I will give you, if you want, some ideas. So geographically, that's where we work. Thematically, what we do. These are the fields. So being very basic, when we go to see a country, or when the country would approach the bank, we know we have expert and expertise in these different fields, right? 14, 7 on one side, 7 on the other side, thematic areas, plus 5 cross-cutting solution areas. So again, not being an economist, being human resources, I will be very simple. At the end of the day, take any of these fields, let's say transport. It's always a combination of expert and expertise in the bank, where we have transport professionals, transport specialists, engineers, combined, working together with economists. So a transport economist and a transport engineer. Same for governance, same for education, same for the other fields. So it's always this combination. And that's why there's again a perception that you need to be an economist / finance expert to work at the bank. So there's no doubt that maybe 50% roughly of the workforce, of the operational workforce, would have an experience in economics and finance, but we have other fields. It's actually, again, difficult to think of a background that wouldn't have opportunities here at the bank. Anthropologists, sociologists, medical doctors, lawyers, no doubt, governance, anti-corruption issues, reforms. So all the possible opportunities might be there, again, as far as we do something that can apply to development and developing countries. Of course, when you have a company of 15,000 people, you also have corporate functions, right? These are the operational structure of the organization, but then you have human resources, information technology, legal office, treasury, general services. You can imagine, the different offices, access, security, communication, a big communication department, and communication, maybe it's the first opportunity to mention the role played by languages. Languages are useful, can be relevant career tools. When we talk about languages, we have 7 official languages. English as a working language, but we also have 6 additional official languages: Arabic, Chinese, Russian, French, Spanish, Portuguese. And these are, as I was saying, career tools. Other languages may be welcome, but of course it depends on needs, work program, and locations. So before I say really 5 minutes on the avenues that you might want to consider, and maybe another 5 minutes on how to make your interest visible. Very rapidly, this slide that is trying to tell the story about the ideal sort of candidate. This is something that we've been using. It's actually also on the website when we talk about the Young Professional Program. But I think it's pretty much valid everywhere in the bank. And this is a combination of this being technically broad and technically deep. What does it mean? That the depth is the easy part to explain. Whatever our field of studies, interest, expertise could be, we need to be credible, strong, good reputation, good academic results, good professional steps. While we grow, there's no doubt this is important, to be knowledgeable in a specific field. At the same time, what we try to find is also people that are broad, people that are flexible, people that they can work outside their comfort zone, people that can adjust their language, style, terminology to different audience. When you are a transport specialist at the bank, there's no doubt that you interact with transport people at the ministry, internally, and so forth. But you also need to rely and connect and get support from people that they might not be knowledgeable or familiar with transport. People that are focusing on the environmental impact or the social impact of the project, the NGOs, the media, the board. So it's a constant exercise of adjusting your style and language to different people at different levels, seniority-wise as well. So people that are doing well are people that can do this, because that's what we are trying to find in candidates, but also that's what we offer. You might know already, again, because of your experience, or even when you Google people and stuff from the World Bank, you see that maybe they've been in the bank for 5, 10 years, and they've done 2, 3 different jobs, also thematically. Meaning from transport, you end up after 2, 3 years applying internally and competing and being selected for a job in urban development, or from transport to water, from transport to energy. This is possible. You might not have the technical, thematic focus, but after a few years, you know the bank, you know the country, you know the counterparts. Things might be able to provide opportunity to work in different fields. So that's what we offer. That's the career. The opportunity to see different things, remember geographically, but also thematically again. And people can be attracted. Skills that I think if we have them, we should highlight them when we talk to people, when we tell the story. Definitely, as you understand, it's very important. It's an environment that would rely on engaging clients. Clients are outside the organization. The client with the capital C is the people that we try to help, the countries. But also clients are internal clients, the board, my management, and so on. So clients. The ability to engage clients is very important. This is definitely, being a team-based working environment is not just a good thing to say, but it's a reality. Teams are small, teams are diverse, geographically, and also culturally, right? We have different backgrounds. So you need to be constantly thinking of your teammates when you do something, sharing knowledge, information, and so on. And 2 additional skills that I strongly recommend to highlight are in the big picture of communication skills, in particular writing skills. This is still a place that if you write well, if people can rely on us, on our writing skills, this is going to be very important, very welcome. And related to this, and also to the fact that teams are small, presentation skills. I would say almost public speaking skills. People that can talk and enjoy presenting, representing the team, the work. The bank will probably find the bank the right place to operate. So the 3 programs, the 3 avenues that I want to mention, and this is the only slide where you will find more and better information on the website, right? So if you have an interest, if you recognize your level of interest right now in one of these 3 avenues, please read more than just these bullets before applying, because that's important. We have internships. Internships are for students. Internships are for graduate students enrolled in a master or a PhD, no age limit. The program is open to both Washington and outside Washington. It's paid and required to apply through the website a few months in advance. When you apply, you enter a database that we make available to our managers, right? It's very simple, not sophisticated at all. You go on the website, you go in the database, we ask managers to go in the database and pull out candidates according to their needs. Some managers, 20%, 40%, 75%, I'm not sure, they are actually quite reluctant to use the database. They don't have the time, everybody looks the same, they don't know the people. They end up valuing more people that are proactive, people that may be referred by professors. So again, it's almost like what I was saying about consultancies. You need to be proactive to increase your visibility, your chances to get an internship at the bank. That's how it works. It might change. Even next time that we will visit LSE, things may be different, but right now that's how it works. Most of the internships are filled through direct contacts. It's a different story when we talk about the other programs. It's a different story about when we talk about regular jobs. But when it's about short-term assignments, being proactive and being visible is essential. The first program after internships is what we call analyst program. That should be again advertised next February, March. And it's a program that is targeting people below 28, so there's an age limit here. And we say with at least 1 year of experience. When you apply, as I'm saying, hopefully next February, you will see some job streams will be advertised. Information technology, communication, HR, operation. So you select your job stream of interest. If you go through the screening process, you reach out a talent pool that we will market internally for 12 months for every single analyst level position available in the organization. So that's all you can do. You can reach this talent pool and hopefully you will be contacted for an interview for one real upcoming position. Then we have the leadership program of the bank that you might know already. It's the Young Professional Program that it's again advertised once a year, generally between May and June. And we actually have two programs, one on the public bank side and one on the private sector IFC side. Both are trying to be leadership programs, meaning trying to identify, hopefully, some of the future leaders of the organization. And they have, on the bank side, we have an age limit of 32. On the IFC side, sorry about the confusion, there's no age limit, but nevertheless, both programs, they have an interest to attract people with at least 3 years of relevant experience on top of their academic qualifications. On the bank side, almost, let's say last year we recruited 50 young professionals. It was a very good year because usually the number is between 35 and 50. Last year we hired 50. 40% of them, they came on board with a PhD degree plus a bit of experience, and 60% came with a master plus some years of experience. So it's also a program that is attracting a lot of PhDs, but still with a lot of opportunities with master degrees plus relevant experience. The relevance is made by what we do, right? So development, field experience, country focus. If you focus on the bank side, policy-related experience could be extremely important. And again, could be private sector, could be public sector, could be NGOs, but things that can give you exposure to development and developing countries. So maybe your question will help me to say more about the programs. And of course, I'm also open to questions about CV, resume, cover letter, interview, whatever you want to know about the process and the tools that we use could be useful. As I was saying, I have more slides about the program that I hope I can share with you through the organizers. But I want to say something about, I don't want to leave the message about being proactive, being visible, do your best without giving you maybe some tools and ideas. And hopefully this is something that you can also use vis-a-vis other organizations, not only limited to the World Bank, even private sector. because I think this can really make the difference to help us not to avoid the competition for the lack of a better expression, but really to talk about the things that we like to talk. If we have an interest in life, let's go also outside the professional stream of the studies. You know, anything that we like to talk about it, we need to talk about it. We don't have to wait for the cover letter or the interview to tell the story about our passion or our interest. We need to find a platform that is comfortable with our culture, our style, where we constantly share information about what we do and what we know. Even talking to your friends and colleagues about what you learned today could be very useful. Constantly sharing information, that could be useful. Then we need to find the best way to do it. And again, style could be different because of the different approach we have. Could be a LinkedIn group, could be a blog, could be attending events, could be our student association, but we need to talk about that. And remember what I was saying, the first thing when we start talking and when we start targeting an organization is to be knowledgeable. So the World Bank is a big place. We need to make the World Bank a small place. Only a few units, a few departments that are relevant to what we know and what we do. So that's the first step. Make the bank a reachable target. And then how do we know more about the bank? Of course, the website could be a good way to know more about the bank. I would always start, now that I know there's a governance practice, I type in the browser governance, I read more about governance, but the website is not the only tool. When we want to know about the bank, I would strongly recommend to make the most of the available data. The bank is very generous in terms of data and project-related information, but also books and publications. Publications that you can download for free, publications that maybe I would strongly recommend instead of buying the publication, as we might suggest, that you ask a copy of the book for your class, for your association, for your library. You know, people would hopefully be happy to share a copy of their books and publications. And hopefully this is also where you can find the names of the people. Remember, when you contact people, when you decide, I'm ready, I want to contact the individual, think always of the affinity that you have with the individual, that you might have. And also, I read your book, I saw your interview on YouTube, I attended your presentation, I couldn't ask the question. Make a reference to the work done. When you contact people, never give the impression to the individual that they represent your starting point. They are the end of the process. They need to feel that you spend time, invested time in your research, in your reading. That's how you transfer your passion, not saying I'm passionate about the work of your organization. You demonstrated the time that you spend and the investment before reaching that individual. That could be very important and appreciated. And if there's an affinity, value the affinity. The affinity could also be the alumni, right? You don't know them personally, but people that they came at the very same event here 5 years ago, where are they? Who they are? You know, you can reach them out through the career services, through the professors, because the first rule about connecting, remember, when you think, I don't know anybody in the target organization, be sure about that, because you need to maximize your current network of contacts. Okay, so the first rule is to be open about your interest. If you have something in mind that you want to target and achieve, you need to talk about it with your friends and colleagues, with your current network of contacts. Otherwise, you might miss opportunities. So be open and maximize the current network. As I was saying, professors, career services, but all these players, they need help from you. Even if they're more knowledgeable and more senior, they need help from you. So it's not about, I would like to connect with the World Bank, but you need to be more specific. You need to guide them and understanding which avenue, which group could be of interest for you. So make the most of the current network of contacts. Also, what I learned about, and what I'm sharing with you, they are not my views, but actually it's feedback from others, right? Sometimes people like you, they send me an email and say, I attended your presentation. I'm actually here at the bank as a consultant. I always ask, congratulations, but how did you actually manage to get an opportunity here? So what I'm sharing is what I'm hearing from people. And also what I learned sometimes is also the ability to think outside the box in terms of diversify your contacts. Okay, remember what I was just saying. If you want to target people that are working in the transport field at the bank, maybe 2 years ago, 5 years ago, they were in a different field. So be also, knowledgeable about the people might come with a different background. Diversify your contact also in terms of seniority. People, when they think about networking, they think about managers, decision makers, people that can offer me something good, but again, they might represent a sort of the end of the process. Don't underestimate young people, or young people, young not age-wise, but young in the system, young in the company that you are targeting, because they are maybe more ready to provide advice, to give you answer basic questions, but sometimes they are more knowledgeable about opportunities. If I give you 2 names of a World Bank director and a World Bank consultant, and you're looking for a short-term consultancy job, I wouldn't know which one could be more useful. A current consultant at the World Bank might know more about other opportunities. They may be approached and they don't have the time, they don't have the skills, they don't have the language. So what do? They use their network, their friends. They let them know about other opportunities. So think also about approaching people at different level, and also in partner organization. Who's working with the World Bank on this project? Who's working in the field with the World Bank? You need to know also about the partners, the NGOs, the other international organizations, the regional development banks. It's also very important to know about the partners in terms of reaching out, what do you want to do. LinkedIn could be, who has a LinkedIn profile here? Okay, very good. When you are, who has an up-to-date LinkedIn profile? More or less the same people, thank you. But when you contact people on LinkedIn, I would also, if possible, sometimes it's good to contact people when you're part of the same group. Okay, so you join a thematic group, and then when you are in the group, you contact people. It's a different level of entry, more than just an outsider thing. When possible, not easy, but I have to mention it, try to reverse this concept of engaging, of professional or networking. Because again, when we think at networking, we think that we need to go there. We need to write to them. I need to tell the story to them. I need to meet somebody over coffee in that building, right? Try to reverse. Try to see if it's possible to attract the company or the individual where you are. So it's your event. It's your student group. It's your blog. It's your LinkedIn group. So you attract. You are seen in action, you don't have to tell the story. And people sometimes are available, like invite people from the World Bank if you have a specific thematic focus and say, can you join us by webinar from Washington, from wherever you are, and talk about this. These things can be useful because they can give an opportunity for us to be seen in action and to be, again, being proactive and so forth. And make the most of all the different tools that you might have. Blogs are good at the bank. If you go on the home page of the bank, you see there's a blog. You click there, and the good news that there are more than 200 bloggers, but they are divided by topics, right? So you join or you follow the conversation that is relevant to you, and you know better than me. It's another way to not to be seen, this is me, this is my CV, let me know, but really be part of the discussion, right? Anti-corruption, fragility, gender, Africa, so you choose the topic of interest. So let me stop here to be sure that we have 20 minutes for some questions, and sorry for being for the crisis I had before, but I hope it was okay. So feel free to, I'm even getting food here. Thank you. I'm fine. Whoever offered the chair had a great idea. Thank you. Questions, please. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. So you mentioned about the internship opportunities for graduate students. And here in the LSE, for example, we have a 1-year-long master's program. So that means that we're not able to do the internship during our program, right? So we have to finish our dissertation first, and then we're going to have around 4 months after we submit our dissertation and before we graduate. Do we still be? Are we still able to apply for the internship then? Do we still be considered as students?
So technically, definitely you can apply. I'm sure that your application will not be rejected by the system when you apply. Then it's really up to the reviewer how they want. And as I was saying, this is totally decentralized. There's no human resources component supervising these programs. There's a HR supervising the YP and the analyst program, but internships is really a database. So your application will go through, and then it's really up to the reviewer if they want to consider your application. But this it's one more reason to really, if you have an interest, to connect directly with that unit and department, maybe with the support of your professor. You need to understand the best way to do it, but definitely I would try to say, ask the question to the unit. Listen, I applied, I'm in the system, but I want to be sure that I'm eligible. This would be something to ask to the specific unit. But technically, yes, please apply and be sure that you are also there in the database. Thank you.
Thank you for your really interesting presentation. I hope you're feeling better. I had a question about kind of generalist versus specialist profiles. Because when you talk about thematic areas, it feels like it's a bit easier maybe to kind of profile yourself and find your way. So I was wondering how you look at that and kind of in terms of career planning.
It's a very good question, and it's not an easy one to answer. But as a candidate, I would always recommend to focus more on being specific and not providing a generalist approach. While we would like to say, I'm ready to do anything, it's your technical focus that would give you more attention. Then as a candidate, if you go through the selection process at any level for any of the opportunities, I would definitely suggest that to be very quick and smart you're going to be invited and people want to know about your technical expertise, but then immediately you will see during the interview or during the selection process that the bank would also try to assess your ability to do other things and being flexible. So I wouldn't use the generalist approach, but more targeting to focus on the technical expertise.
And may I just, as a generalist, how would you profile yourself best? Maybe that's the more honest question.
No, yeah, well, definitely, if you are a generalist, if you're a genuine generalist, I would still try to identify areas of the bank. So reverse this thing and trying to be specific on what you target and demonstrate that you are knowledgeable about what's going on, what are the challenges, that you go with this approach, presenting your experience in a certain way based on what you know about the target. I think that's extremely useful. Because at the end of the day, being knowledgeable and demonstrate familiarity with the organization is going to make the difference. There's a lady over there, maybe. Sorry, I'll be back here.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about experience for the analyst program. So I noticed it said between 1 and 3 years. Does this have to be all in one go, or could it be cumulative? So if you've done internships in the last few years and it adds up to a year or 3?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked. I should have mentioned that. Yes, we suggest for the analyst program, we say at least 1 to 3 years. And actually, by the way, if you have more, it's probably going not to help, because the program should target really this population with 1 to 3 years of experience. We count everything. including internships, and of course you can have 6 months and 6 months, three, but we need help again, right? Be sure that when you present your internship is a type of appointment, it's not a job, right? So it's help the reviewer. So you can call it internship, but if you need to say research assistant, or that could help, right? To reviewer, to be sure to understand. I don't really need to know if it was paid or unpaid. I need to know maybe if it was full-time or part-time, but what I need to know is the responsibilities, the duties, and maybe even the accomplishments during that period of time to be sure that it's going to be counted. Yes?
Fernando Silva from Mexico. Thank you for your time. And I want to ask you about the flexibility of age for the analyst programs. And then also on the young professionals, I mean, what has been historically, what have been the nations, or do you select from US universities, also from UK, and a little bit of
Thank you, yeah. So on the age requirements, while we don't have age requirements for any jobs, the only two exceptions are the analyst and the young professional, and we are unfortunately pretty strict in terms of the age limit. Again, the system will not reject your application, so you would be able, but I'm pretty sure also because of the volume of applicants, there will be no interest to review applications. It's really the first screening. So you need to meet the age requirements. On the young professional is actually the opportunity to recruit 30, 35, 50 people together, right? So from the recruitment standpoint, it's the most successful story that we have, because when you recruit one by one, it's always a challenge to really target diversity. But when you recruit 50, it's easier to be sure that we do a good job in terms of diversity. So there's always a good gender balance, and also the nationality diversity is there. There are not countries that are more successful or less. It depends, right? But we do try to have a good diversity. And also the young professional is also a program that would monitor the education diversity. Historically, if you go back 20, 30, 40 years, the bank had a reputation for recruiting only from certain schools, but now it's definitely changing. It's definitely changing. Of course, the ranking, the reputation, and also the quality of certain schools might still be there, but you see more diversity. And I don't want to quote data that I don't have for sure, and I know you represent different schools here that are all well-known and well-positioned, but definitely LSE is definitely there on top of the list every year of the people that got degrees and joined the YP. Thank you. One at the very end, maybe? Oh, you decide,
Thank you. I wanted to ask about the selection process for the analyst program. So after the initial review, there's this online assessment. What would be the best way of preparing for the online assessment?
Thank you, correct. So you apply, you choose a job stream, and then if you go through the first screening, we ask to do an online testing. The news is that I'm not sure that next year we will use the same approach, because last year you might know that we actually didn't have the analyst program, 2018, but we will relaunch it next year, because we were not happy with the outcome. The potential of the analyst program is huge. Because in 2017, for example, we advertised, I think, 180 jobs at the analyst level. Okay? 180 jobs. Only 20 of them were filled through the talent pool provided by the analyst program. Again, this is the lack of transparency of the politics or whatever, but that's a reality. A lot of units, a lot of managers, they didn't use the talent pool because they prefer to advertise individually their positions, their jobs. We want to change that. We want to increase the number of jobs that are filled through the program So next year, the program will probably be revamped, and this might have an impact also on the selection steps. I assume we will have an online test that will help us to screen and screen the applications, but it might be different than what we had last year.
Thank you for this presentation. So I actually have a couple of questions. So first one, could you please guide us through like how a CV should look like? Like how a CV should look like the structure that is preferred.
Yeah.
Second, you mentioned a lot about visibility. So I would want to know how World Bank is keeping a track of the visibility and which are the platforms that where you can like access, like I can like be the person showing my visibility. And another thing is like, what is the number of students that are like recruited usually from Cambridge, Oxford, and LSE? If you could tell me about that. Thank you.
Well, I don't know the numbers about the different schools. Yeah, and I don't have data. I know that LSE comes often number one in the number of people, different level of degrees. Maybe not the highest degree, but definitely. For the YP program, LSE has been, if not on the first one, but in the top 3 or 5 schools every year, consistently. First question about the CV could be, hopefully, was also a question for other people. I'm glad I'm the only one for the bank, because if there were 5 recruiters, we would probably have 5 different answers in the way we expect the CV or the resume of the candidate. But definitely, in terms of length, we would probably suggest to have a 1 or 2 page CV, but there's no restriction. You know, you might find managers that are happy to see more than 2 pages, but ideally, you know, you need to go, you know how they say, right? That if the time, you know, if you Google time to review a CV, it says the average time is like 17 seconds, right? And it's important to know that this is regardless of the length, right? So if you have a 1-page CV, it's going to be 20 seconds to review. If you have a 5-page CV, it's going to be 20 seconds, because that's the way. So it's we only take a risk if we have a long CV, right? The risk is that a key piece of information is somewhere in the middle of page 2 or at the bottom of page 3. So especially if you don't have 30 years of experience, I would try to go for a 2-page CV. I think the structure, you know how it should look. I was mentioning before, you know, if you have bullets, be sure that you have a balance, because sometimes there's not balance between duties and responsibilities and accomplishments. These 2 things should be really balanced. So if you have 3 bullets, it's really duties, responsibility, and accomplishment. Accomplishments, results, outcome, achievements should be there. And sometimes they represent the best opportunity to tell the story about our team work, right? So something that we achieved as part of the team, something like that. That's why I personally like a sort of a summary that can help the reviewer, you know. But again, the summary is like the cover letter. It's not something that we have in our files and we are ready to use it. The summary, like the cover letter, is something that we have to produce each time, right? There's not a standard cover letter. The cover letter is something where we really tackle the position, we talk about the position, we talk about the program, and then we talk about us in that context. You guys are doing this, you guys are looking for this, that's what I'm doing. You talk about the key aspects of the position, 2-3 paragraphs, and you match them. And the summary is an opportunity for me to help the reviewer. How many years of experience in this field, in these topics, with these main responsibilities, all things that are relevant for the position. Because if I'm saying something that is not relevant, I'm not going to read the rest. And the question in the second one was? The visibility. The visibility, you know, it's really, it's your action plan, right? How to connect. You need to develop a group of friends and colleagues in different places. So it's really up to us how we want to do that, but we have to do it. Okay? Remember that at the end, when you reach the competition stage, to be practical, it's like 6 people in a room, and they review not 500 applications anymore, but they review probably the top 20 applications, and the power of one individual doesn't need to be the more senior, but one individual can say, I know this person. I know she was going to apply, and may say something positive or less positive about us, has a strong impact in the room, even vis-à-vis other people that may be more senior and more knowledgeable. So that's the visibility, but also because, again, you will do a better application, because sometimes the job description in terms of reference will be needed to be interpreted, or again, information between the lines that might require to know more what they really want to highlight. Maybe the last question, and of course, more questions, you are welcome to come to the booth, that we will be there for the rest of the day.
Thank you for your presentation. I would just like to know if you could maybe share a bit of your early experience, like as soon as you graduated and before you joined the World Bank. Thank you.
Thank you, sure. So I knew, despite what I said, that you need to be knowledgeable, I didn't know anything about the World Bank, but I come from the private sector. So I used to work in a search firm. And I was definitely trying to find a job outside Italy, and maybe I was targeting London more. But my job was also to review the different opportunities. I was reading and checking the competition on The Economist and Financial Times every week. So I ended up applying for a job, but I got a 1-year contract. So it was a short-term contract. At least it was not a full-time regular job of the position, but I came from the private sector. I don't represent the classic profile, because I didn't study development-related matters, and I don't work for the operational side, but more for the corporate side, right, the HR. So maybe there was a short one. Another one, very quickly, right? That you helped me with the chair, right? Sure. Sure. So if you start realizing that you have 2, 3, 5 years of experience, of relevant experience, you will see jobs that are going to be advertised. Especially on the IFC private sector side, you see investment analyst jobs that require a couple of years of experience, or analyst jobs at large, they require 2 to 3 years of experience. So you can target these jobs. If you have more experience, you see there will be jobs regularly advertised. And remember also what I was saying about the consultancies, because that's also an excellent way, maybe even more realistic way to really start to know the bank and to be known by the bank. And again, going back, just to be sure that we agree, jobs are advertised. So yes, monitor the website. You can even register for a job alert. If your interest is transport, you select transport, and you are constantly informed about transport opportunities. And even if they're not relevant for you, it's good to know about the criteria, the language, and use and make the most when you apply. But again, for the consulting jobs, might be advertised, but most of the time are not advertised. So thank you again. Sorry for the... enjoy the rest of the day.